You've got two browser tabs open and one quiet panic building in your chest, a spreadsheet on one side, and a breaking news alert on the other. The spreadsheet says you'll hit the quarterly target. The news alert says your biggest customer might freeze spending tomorrow. Both feel true, both can't be true. And you don't know which one is the signal and which one is noise. This is The Signal and the Noise by Nate Silver, and it's a practical guide to making better predictions in a world that keeps tricking your brain. You're going to learn why confident forecasts collapse, why being less wrong beats being certain, how to think in probabilities without sounding robotic, and how to update your beliefs without losing your mind. This video covers every major chapter, so by the end, you'll have the full picture. And that knot in your stomach when the numbers say one thing and your gut says another? Sam carried that feeling into every forecast he ever built. He didn't hate numbers, he loved them. He loved the feeling of a clean model, a neat chart, a trend line that behaved. His real problem was what numbers did to him emotionally. When the chart went up, he felt safe. When it went down, he felt hunted. He treated it like a life raft. If someone says there's a 70% chance of something, then that thing should happen about 7 out of 10 times in similar situations. That is calibration. Sam saw the opposite during an election season. He had a friend named Jordan who loved politics like it was a sport. Jordan would send bold takes at night. "This candidate is done!" That debate changed everything. Sam felt the pull because it sounded like certainty. One evening, Sam asked a simple question. "How often are you right?" Jordan laughed and said, "I'm right when it matters." But it was a shield. When it matters was not measurable. It was just ego protection. Silver's point is that forecasters should be judged like weather forecasters, not by vibes, by outcomes, by honest probability. Then the book shifts into sports because sports provide fast feedback. As in baseball, even the best hitters fail constantly. That teaches humility. It teaches variance. It teaches that good prediction is not "this will happen." Good prediction is "this is more likely than that, and here is how confident I am." Sports also reveal something important. Many real-world domains are dangerous because feedback is slow, messy, or politically distorted. You can be wrong for years and still be praised. That is why pundit culture survives. It is built to avoid accountability. Weather forecasting adds another lesson. Forecasts have improved because meteorology embraced probability and verification. Forecasters got better by measuring themselves honestly and by communicating uncertainty more clearly. But there is a human problem. If people do not understand probability, even a good forecast can look like a failure. And if you hear 30% chance of rain and it rains, you might claim the forecast was wrong, but 30% never meant no rain. It meant rain was possible and you should plan accordingly. Sam had to learn this in his own workplace. After his forecast disaster, his director said, "Why didn't you warn us this could happen?" Sam wanted to say, "Because you demanded one number." Instead, he changed his approach. The next time, he brought a range. He said, "Here's the most likely scenario. Here is a downside scenario. Here is an upside scenario. And here is what would cause each one." His director frowned and asked, "So, which one do you believe?" Sam felt the old temptation to pick one and sound confident, but he remembered the book's central lesson. Reality does not hand you certainty. So he said, I believe in the range." It felt risky. It felt like refusing to play the confidence game. The conversation improved. People started asking better questions. They stopped demanding a fantasy and started planning. That is the real gift of probabilistic thinking, and more useful. Now the book moves into a domain that shows the title in its purest form: earthquakes. Here the lesson is painful. Some systems do not have enough clean signal to allow precise predictions. The noise is overwhelming. Pretending you can forecast anyway is not ambitious. It is dishonest. This is where your brain becomes the enemy. Your brain is a pattern machine. It will find a story in random dots. It will see meaning in coincidence. When people desperately want certainty, they become easier to fool, including by their own minds. I imagine trying to hear a friend's voice in a crowded stadium. If the crowd is loud enough, you start imagining words. You match sounds to what you expect. even when your friend never spoke. The forecasting skill here is knowing when not to forecast. Sometimes the honest answer is, we do not have enough signal. That answer feels powerless, but it protects you from confident mistakes. Then Silver turns to a modern trap: information overload. You can drown in shallow water if you cannot stand up. You can drown in data if you do not know what matters. People confuse quantity with quality. They add more variables, more complexity, more smartness, and they accidentally overfit. Sam tried to fix his forecasting like this. He stayed late one night and decided his model was too simple. So he added web traffic. He added email metrics. And he added support tickets. He added everything he could find because it felt like control. The next day, his model fit the past perfectly. It looked amazing. He felt safe again. Then the next month, it failed even worse. That is overfitting in human form. It is like studying for a test by memorizing the answer key and collapse on the real exam. The lesson is not simple is always better. The lesson is that complexity must earn its place. Complexity has to prove it works on new situations, not just old data. After that, Silver starts explaining why some forecasters consistently do better. It is not usually raw intelligence, it is process. Good forecasters keep score. They revisit predictions. They test themselves. They treat beliefs like hypotheses instead of identity. When new evidence arrives, they update instead of defending. This is where Bayesian thinking becomes practical. In normal language, it means you start with an initial belief. Then you adjust as data arrives. You do not flip from certainty to certainty. You shift gradually. You become less wrong over time. Sam applied this to a personal belief that had nothing to do with work. He always believed he was terrible at waking up early. I'm not a morning person was his identity story, but he started treating it like a forecast, not a fate. His prior belief was that if he set an alarm for 6:30, he would fail. So he ran a simple experiment for 2 weeks. He tracked sleep hours. He changed his environment. He checked results. He did not magically transform, but he discovered something useful. On days he slept enough, he woke up more easily. On days he slept less, he failed more. He updated his belief. The issue was not identity. The issue was a system. That is Bayesian thinking in real life. You stop being dramatic, you start being accurate. The heart of the book is summarized in one mindset. Less and less and less wrong. You are not trying to be a prophet, you are trying to improve. Your ego wants a big win. Reality offers incremental correction. Think of learning to shoot a basketball. At first you miss wildly, then you miss by less. Your errors shrink. That is what good prediction looks like. Then Silver explores the tension between humans and algorithms. Models can beat humans in domains where signals are measurable and feedback is fast, but models can fail when assumptions break, when meaning changes, or when rare events dominate. Humans fail differently. Humans overreact to vivid stories, ignore base rates, and mistake confidence for competence. So the best approach is not blind trust in machines or blind trust in intuition. It is partnership. Use models for discipline and consistency, and use human judgment to question assumptions and notice when the world changes. Sam experienced this when his company bought an automated churn prediction tool. The demo was flashy. The dashboard looked authoritative. Leadership wanted to act fast because the tool flagged high-risk accounts. Sam pulled a sample and read real customer notes. He discovered that many high-risk customers were actually expanding. They had more support tickets because they were onboarding new teams. They were noisy, not leaving. The model had learned a correlation from the past, but the meaning had changed. The model did not understand meaning. It understood patterns. That taught Sam a sharp lesson. Models do not replace thinking. They demand better thinking. Then the book goes to poker because poker forces you to separate process from outcome. In poker, you never know the whole truth. You can make the right decision and still lose. But you can make the wrong decision and still win. Most people judge decisions by outcomes. If it worked, it was smart. If it failed, it was stupid. But outcomes contain luck. Poker teaches a better rule. Judge decisions by whether they had positive expected value given what you knew at the time. This matters because one lucky outcome can train you into worse behavior. Sam remembered a moment from earlier in his career. He warned his team that a deal might slip. The deal closed fast anyway. His boss teased him. Sam worried for nothing. People laughed. After that, Sam started hiding uncertainty. He started making bolder claims. Poker thinking would have protected him. His caution was still rational. The outcome just happened to go the other way. From there, Silver dives into markets and bubbles. The lesson is that prediction depends on the structure of the system. In competitive environments, obvious signals get exploited. If everyone can see the pattern stops being valuable. That is why forecasting in markets is hard. It is also why people chase exotic signals and overfit themselves into disaster. Bubbles also show how psychology and uncertainty collide. People do not only trade on facts, they trade on beliefs about other people's beliefs. Narratives can inflate reality until something snaps. Even if you never invest, you live inside similar systems. You forecast what your boss will approve, you forecast what an audience will like, you forecast what people will copy. Those are human systems driven by feedback loops. Then the book moves to climate, which teaches a vital distinction. Skepticism should be healthy, not cynical. Healthy skepticism asks, what do we know with high confidence? What is uncertain? And what are the ranges? Cynical skepticism says, if it is not certain, it is worthless. That mindset destroys planning. The mature mindset is holding two ideas at once. You can act on what is likely while respecting uncertainty. That is how adults make decisions in a probabilistic world. Finally, Silver closes with a warning that uncertainty is not just annoying. It can hurt you. People underestimate rare events. They ignore fragility. They assume the future will look like the recent past. But a rare event does not mean never. It means not often. If the consequence is huge, not often is still worth preparing for. This is where forecasting becomes risk management. Prediction asks, what will happen? Risk asks, what happens if I'm wrong? That question is one of the smartest questions you can ask. Sam started using it as a habit. Every time he made a forecast, he wrote one extra sentence. If this forecast is wrong, the biggest reason will be. Then he forced himself to finish it. Sometimes it was external. A competitor could change pricing. Sometimes it was internal. Our sales team could shift focus. Sometimes it was signal weakness. This market is unstable and patterns are thin. That sentence changed how he worked because it created humility and vigilance at the same time. And this is the thread that connects everything in the signal and the noise. The book is not telling you to predict perfectly. It is training you to make better decisions under uncertainty. Different domains require different forecasting styles. Earthquakes are not elections. Weather is not markets. Sports are not terrorism. Some domains have strong signal and fast feedback. Others have weak signal and slow feedback. A good forecaster starts by asking, what kind of world is this? What signals are measurable? How clean is the data? How fast do we learn? How much do incentives change the game? How much do rare events matter? That is like choosing shoes. You do not wear ice skates to run a marathon. You do not wear flip-flops to climb a mountain. The tool must match the terrain. Sam understood this during a product launch. Leadership wanted a forecast for adoption. Sam had data from previous launches, but he noticed the terrain had changed. The feature depended on a partner integration that was still unstable. Signal would be weak until that stabilized. So he said, we can forecast a range, but the signal is weak until the integration stabilizes. Then he added the practical move. Let's launch a small pilot group, measure behavior for 2 weeks, then update the forecast with real adoption data. That was not just predicting, that was building a feedback loop. And Silver pushes you toward that again and again. When the future is uncertain, you do not only predict, you experiment. You create ways to learn faster. You reduce uncertainty by changing what you can observe. So if you want the core takeaway in one sentence, it is this. Your goal is not to be right. Your goal is to be useful. A prediction that makes you feel smart is not the same as a prediction that helps you make better decisions. A forecast that sounds confident is not the same as a forecast that is calibrated. Now, here are 4 things you can start doing right now based on what you just learned. First, speak in ranges instead of single numbers. If you think something will take 2 weeks, say it will probably take between 10 and 18 days, and explain what pushes it toward the high end. This will feel uncomfortable, but it forces honest planning. Second, keep a simple prediction journal for 1 month. Write down a few everyday forecasts and attach probabilities. This client will renew. This video will perform well. This meeting will be tense. When outcomes arrive, check your calibration. Do not shame yourself. Learn. Third, ask the risk question every time you commit. If I'm wrong, what is the cost? If one wrong forecast could ruin you, you are living without a buffer. Fourth, build feedback loops on purpose. If you are unsure, do not argue forever. Run a small test to create new data, pilot, measure, update. This is how you stop guessing and start learning. If you do those 4 things consistently, something shifts. Your anxiety drops because you stop demanding perfect foresight. Your decisions get calmer because you think like a forecaster, not like a pundit. And your life becomes less reactive because you are steering with better headlights instead of chasing a fantasy of daylight. That's it for this video. I hope it was useful and gave you something real to think about. Thanks for watching and have a great day.